Hey y'all, this is Phil from the future, coming to you hot off the heels of my conversation with Coach Aaron Hawkins. Coach Hawk, the man, AA Ron. Him and I were colleagues at the Veterans Affairs Mental Health Outpatient Facility, and we formed a really cool, trusting, collegial, and even friendship, I would say. And I invited him on the show just to talk a little bit about his journey with spiritual fitness and how he understands it. So I don't want to give too much away because his story is touching, and I think it's also inspiring, especially for anyone who might be suffering with trying to get over destructive habits. It doesn't have to be an addiction in order for it to be a destructive habit. And so his story outlines exactly how he was able to get to where he's at now, to find the success, and above all, maintain the success that he has now. And I believe it's as a result of him becoming and staying spiritually fit. Sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of the Spiritual Fitness Grow Self podcast.
Yes, hello world. My name is Aaron Hawkins. I am a two-time Iraqi war veteran of the U.S. Army and a pleasant guest on this show with my man Phil.
How did we come to know each other?
Um, During our work at the VA, I am a peer specialist, and I met Phil in his role as a chaplain, chaplain fellow in the PRRC program, working with veterans to reintegrate them into the community and provide services through various groups that we offered through our program.
And since I do know you, the way that you introduce yourself and what you describe is obviously we only have so much time, but there's also so much more to you. You know, you're a dad, you're an artist, you are a coach. You know, that was one of the first things I remember kind of asking you and getting to know you, like, what do you like to go by? And you were saying to me that it was only when we got hired at the VA that people started calling you Aaron. Like your whole life, you were other names besides Aaron. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah. What's that been
yeah.
like being Aaron kind of for the first time in your, because you're what, like 23, right? Something like that.
It's plus 20. Yeah, yeah. Being in my early 40s and spending most of my life being called by our family nickname Hawk, and then going into coaching and progressing as an artist, being known as Coach Hawk or Coach, became very part of my identity and how I like to be viewed and the way I carried myself. So being called Aaron again and being known as that kind of was like I guess taking off some armor, taking down a shield, and also just reaffirming that I'm not ever just one thing. I have many layers. I have things that have been given to me that are gifts that I want to continue to share, and my name Aaron is one of them. So it's been cool.
And like I would say that it like is a really cool symbol of the new chapter, even the new like series that started when we first met each other versus where you were coming from.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It definitely was a good indicator of a new chapter and a new level of me um, and how I live. So yeah, when you met me, I was only a couple months into sobriety, and the first chapter in my life of actual recovery, moving in a healthy direction in all parts of my life and having some good supports in place to help me do so.
I wonder how much did your sense of identity, your sense of purpose, how much did that play a role in your journey towards sobriety, both positive and negative?
Um, I would say the negatives were that sense of identity was I didn't think I could be me or function without substance, and added to that without any of the mental health issues not being present. I thought all of those were what defined and shaped the kind of person that I was and how I survived to that point. So when the substances were removed and my mental health improved, it it was scary. You know, it still is scary some days because now it's me operating, living, thriving without those things, and now what do I replace them with? You know, and having a healthy routine, healthy patterns and practices, so that my life is filled with more positive things and moving in a better direction. So it's
Mm.
those are some of the negatives. The positives is, the positives is like I get to it's a fresh start, like I'm still me, but now it's a new me and I get to find out what that's like.
It's oh, there's so many things that I just like want to unpack here. Like what you're saying, I'm hearing you say is the you said the F word. It's fear. It's scary. It's intimidating to kind of release the grasp of what we have of our sense of self and taking the risk to discover that who we claim or who we believe that we are, in fact, is not the full story, or that there's more to offer if we are willing to challenge our sense of identity or um, become a little bit more humble towards our fixed mindset of who we say we are or who we say we can be. What do
For
you think
sure.
about that? Does that relate with what you're saying?
Oh, it's spot on. Yeah, it's definitely something I think I know for me was a big hurdle to get over, but I think most people either don't recognize it being a hurdle or never are brave enough to fight through that fear and get out of that fixed mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're spot on. It's very very scary and also very rewarding because it's new. It is exciting, and and the benefits from that experience of being able to grow my mindset to take some of the old lessons and the old experiences and apply them in a better way, in a different way. It's amazing, and I'm grateful
Right.
for the opportunity.
Because you're not saying it's like the killing off of the older self, but more of like a phoenix or like a molting of like a snake, where like you're shedding that older skin and finding a deeper sense of self. Um,
For sure.
just for the clarity, who is that lovely sound? What are those lovely sounds that I'm hearing?
That is my youngest child. Her name is Maggie, and she is 4 months old.
4 months old. Um,
Yeah.
You and I had said, I think just before you left, that this was going to be an incredible experience because it would be, because you have another child, I know, but that child was born before you achieved sobriety, and this child was born while you've been sober.
Yes.
What's that been like?
Yes. It's uh it's been great, man. It's been great. I appreciate the amount of energy that I can have in the present moment, the amount of opportunity to observe, and just really soak in life. Cherish each moment, and be more of myself, and being able to recognize more of myself. So like when I was not sober, I still thought that I was creative, clever, funny, strong, um, responsible. All those things I felt because they're part of my core values and my core being. I thought I was still doing all of that stuff, and now comparing that time to now, I realized how much I was not present and how much I was not as clever and responsible and creative as I thought I was, under the cloud of addiction and the cloud of poor mental health. So having this opportunity now to watch this little one grow from day zero up until now, and also just seeing the relationship with my son and her. Um, it's just a beautiful opportunity to learn from the experiences I had and to appreciate the experiences that I currently have. So
Mm.
it's been great.
Are you kind of saying that it was only after you were able to maintain this healthier state of mind that you were able to look back and kind of realized how uh, what's the word, like filtered or clouded your actual performance was?
Oh yeah, for sure. And a part of it, is just from day to day and being able to recognize it, but also it took a lot of reflection. A lot of time with prayer, meditation, and and journaling, and then looking back at the things that I wrote. My music is a form of a journal for me too. Most of the content that I create is about my emotions, experiences on that day, So
Mm.
looking back at content from a couple years ago and then comparing it to the content that I have now, it also tells the story of um of how clouded I was back then and the filter that I was living life through, and gives me perspective on where I am now and how grateful I am and how I need to be.
Hmm. Yeah. So, from the spiritual fitness side of things, it sounds like we're like really settling into between the categories of meaning, purpose, and belonging. It's I'm hearing more on like the purpose side of things, like the role, sense of identity, and how in your journey in achieving sobriety, which is a huge success that you've been able to maintain, it's coming from this level of self acceptance and reflection, and I don't know, like what else to add to that. But I do want to know about what your spirituality did for you to help you get there. Where did, what was your process that led
Oh,
from out to in?
um, okay, that's a beautiful question, and I'll give a little bit of history and then bring it to answering the question directly. When I was in combat back in 2005, I I needed spiritual direction and I didn't have it. I grew up in a household that was very religious, but didn't speak a lot to the spirituality process and like an experience, like what my relationship is with my higher power. So I sought that out during the deployment, went to a bunch of different denominations and settled with Christianity because that's what my grandmother taught me. Taught me how to read to say the rosemary,
Rosary.
rosary, rosary. Taught me how to say the rosary, and
You
I
sure?
wore one the entire time I was in my second. I'm
Mm.
positive it was one given by a chaplain out there, and I wore it the entire deployment.
Mm.
Um, and
Wait,
then
real quick. Can we just, I want
didn't
to ask about
stay.
that.
Yeah.
Is that, you said that in '05 when you were on your deployment, that you were looking for spiritual direction. Why were you looking for spiritual direction in your
Yes.
deployment?
Um, because I did not. want to be there. And prior to that, I was supposed to get out of the army. So well, it was called a stop loss. It's where the military can change your contract based on the needs of the military. And so when I was sent back out there, I was cold and callous, and I didn't have any faith that I was going to make it back. I felt like I barely made it home from my first deployment in 2003. You know, I lost a couple people that I knew and watched several others that I did not know as well not make it. So when I got home in '03, I was like, I'm never going back. I'm not putting myself in that kind of danger. Um, and once they deployed me back in 2005, I needed someone with me that I trusted, and my trust was not in the army and in military and my government. My trust needed to come from somewhere else, and that was my higher power that I was looking for. So that's why I needed it.
Mm. Um,
That
if
was
you don't, if you
that's
don't,
what that was my mindset anyway.
yeah. This is really interesting, Aaron. Can you just go back for a second to that moment when you were home and you got the word and they said, "Hey, you're going back." Like, I mean, what was that like? Like, what happened?
Oh man, it it was a whirlwind of feelings. I had already started doing my ETS paperwork, which is like separating from active duty. I had a fiance at the time, and her and I were already in a rocky place. And I had moved her from Connecticut down to Georgia. Um, so now all of these things were on my plate. I need to figure out if I have to go, how am I going to be able to do this? If I'm leaving, she can't stay down here, so I need to buy her a car to get her back to Connecticut so she can get a job up there. Um, Dealing with whether or not we were going to break up and how our families were going to deal with that. All of those things were all hitting me at once, you know, and then, uh, just being in the mindset like if I am gonna go back, I need to go back with the strongest supports that I can find. And I really was not trusting in human beings. I didn't trust people at all. So all of those things were hitting me at once. And
Man,
yeah,
I mean, I'm this you're describing it like an experience of like deep betrayal. This like almost like a sense of injustice, like, hey, you what's that called, recounted on the deal that we made, and now you're using your power to force me back in to do something that I did not agree to or expect to sign up for, uh, and to be sort of put in like a lose-lose situation. um,
yeah,
and that was all circling and happening at the same time, and then there's this deepness within you that said, okay, well, if this is going to be the case, I'm going to need all the support that I can get, which then led to this light of, I need something higher that I can rely on. And that's what brought you to this hunger for spiritual fitness.
absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt.
Hmm. Just a curious, maybe a stupid question, because I think the answers might be obvious, but do you think, how do you think that would have played out differently if you had the same spiritual fitness that you have now, if you had it back then?
Oh man, I mean, to be honest, I don't think that I was ready to have the spiritual fitness that I have now back then. I think that I
Mm-hmm.
was still too immature, and I didn't I didn't fall far enough. You know, I had struggles, I had issues, but um, I didn't know enough pain. I didn't know enough despair, and I didn't know enough hurt to really have the spiritual fitness that I have now. So I don't even think I would have been able to handle the awesomeness of my spirituality that I have now. I don't think I would have been able to handle it back then. So
Mm. Okay, so
that's my answer to that one.
then, oh man, I think that's beautiful. I mean, I can totally relate, Aaron. Like, it's this, um, it's this great Shakespeare quote from King King Arthur, King whatever. It's a Shakespeare quote, and I'm going to totally botch it. But what's happening is that King Lear. It's from King Lear, and one of the men is very obstinate, and he's refusing to comply or change his lifestyle. And the main one of the main characters says, "Oh, cast them off and allow the consequences of life to become their schoolmasters." And that idea of
Mm,
like the best, unfortunately, I think that like, and I can agree with you. In my experience, the reasons why I've made the greatest changes is because I've experienced the biggest pain, and that was
yeah.
the thing that like woke me up. You know, for my story, I come from a family of alcoholics, and I only discovered that like during and after seminary. I've lost now.
Mm,
There have been three generations of members on one side of my family who have died to alcoholism. My great great grandfather, my
wow.
grandfather, and now my uncle. Um, all of them to untreated uh, substance abuse or use. And it was in my journey where I was beginning to abuse substances that I learned that I looked in the mirror and uh, quickly realized, like, oh shit, this is, I'm headed, I am headed fast down this path. And if I don't make a course correction, I'm going to end up where they are. And I had already caused some pain to the people who I love. And like you, Aaron, it has only been in my stint of sobriety and temperance that I can look back and see um, the pain that I caused in my previous habits, and those lashes, those scars, are what keep me motivated to maintain health and well being and spiritual fitness. So
Wow.
I can relate
Yeah.
with you with that. Let's keep going
Uh,
with this stories, or if you want to add something, you can.
well, first of all, my condolences for your losses, and I am very happy to hear that you can relate to and have also found some strength in being able to learn from it, apply it to your life, and now move forward. Um, yeah, so just want to give some space to that. Much love and respect to you on all that.
What would you
Um,
say
to
if
continue on, go
what would
ahead.
you say if I reflected on the fact that you had said that you don't think you would be able to have the spiritual fitness that you had today if you didn't have the pain and struggle that you went through? So, would it be too far to say that your second deployment actually ended up being a blessing in disguise?
Oh, not at all. It's man, my second deployment was definitely a blessing in so many ways. So it definitely was disguised to me before I went out there because I was not about it at all. But after coming back from it, it gave me a great moment of a glimpse of what my life can be, um, and the the progress that I made while I was out there, as far as spiritually, um, definitely physically. Like I worked out constantly, wrote some of the best music I've ever had, um, found my art form within music of being an off the top improv creative freestyler. I honed that craft during that year. Um, but the biggest issue is that when I came home, I came back to a lot of the old lifestyles. I wanted to be a part of what my friends and my ex fiance had going on, and it really wasn't much of anything. You know, they had a lot of untreated trauma in their lives, and they masked it with substances and unhealthy practice, and I fell right into that, and I lost sight of the gifts that I was given during that deployment of my connection to my higher power. You know, I still would look and see things in my own interpretation of signs from my higher power and lessons being taught and nods of yes, you're going in the right direction, but I either didn't give them enough credit or I gave them too much and then became paranoid behind them. So it led to more mental health issues, um, ruined relationships, and some destructive behavior on my part that hurt myself and others. Uh, Fast forward, that those patterns continued. There was moments of success, short stints of dry periods, but still using substance to escape from myself and to self medicate, and not really dealing with my mental health issues in a way that was productive. Um, so it just led to a lot of inconsistent time of things being good, things being bad, me being able to help people and find healthy relationships, and then me being self-destructive and hurtful. Yeah, so it was a good 10 to 15 years of just ups and downs of that, and not being able to be very consistent with healthy living and being positive parts of a community or even a family. You know, I had issues with my family as well. I also come from some alcoholics. My parents, and on both of their sides, there's definitely a history of that, and enablers. You know, like I was able to stay at my parents' house when I hit another bottom. You know, and I messed up whatever house I was in. Was always able to go home, and there was never there's no locks on the liquor cabinets, and there's no one checking my room for what I have in it, and I can stay up as late as I want. So it definitely led to a lot of negative times. And somewhere in there, I got lucky. I met a beautiful lady who caught me during one of the highs and moving in a positive direction. And we ended up having my son. This was in 2021, and even through our relationship ups and downs, we knew that we wanted to be healing for one another. But I was not in a place. I was in a place of everything else is wrong. Nothing's wrong with me. Everything else is not right. I'm the one who's right. And even in my darkest moments during that time, I remember being completely trashed with substances in my system and talking to God, and like sitting there having conversations like, are you allowing me to continue on this path because there's something else I need to know, or are you testing me because you know I'm stronger than how I am showing up? Like, I don't know really what to do. I don't know what's going on. And then I'd take another drink, and then stumble through more days. And thankfully I found some friends in AA that just gave me some of the template that AA practices on how to live life and how to really cultivate a healthy relationship with your higher power. And when I hit another bottom and went into a rehab through the VA, um, the AA doctrine was even more applicable. It gave me more of that insight of what was happening during that time. So like, there's a thing called spiritual awakening, and a spiritual experience. And there was a day that I woke up and most of the urge to use anything was gone. And I felt like my higher power had helped me, because I was willing to accept the help from my higher power. It in turn gave me the strength to be able to do so. And it just got me onto the beginning of my spiritual fitness regimen that I still use to this day. As soon as I wake up, I give praise. I have my mantras of affirmation. I affirm my water before I drink it, and then drink some water. Having a little bit of meditation and yoga within every day. Making sure I do something creative with music every day. All those things became a part of my spiritual journey. And then, I continue to be blessed by, the situation I'm put in. I got to meet you, and we were put into a situation where we were asked to do um, some spirituality geared groups. And again, I don't want to give. I don't know how much I'm allowed to speak, so you can stop me at any time. But
You talk. You keep going. Say whatever you want to say.
okay. But the um, the the innovative way that you um, created the course, the group of spiritual fitness, um, gave me more perspective on, man. Like, all right, so like, I got this regimen, I got a routine of what I do. But I like this idea as well, because now it gives me something quantifiable that I can check off. And if I'm not somebody who's diligent and disciplined on creating that kind of routine for myself, this gives me another type of template for my life. And now this can be applied to my spirituality, and watching the beginnings and growing of that group, from, tracking spiritual texts, community involvement, all the kind of things that we would check in the beginning, and then moving to, doing the different practices and the gratitude lists, and all that stuff. It was just more levels of helping me see that recovery is so much of a journey and not a destination. And being able to add things to my practice on a daily basis. So
Hmm.
that's how I got to where I am now. And even today, I just finished the 12 steps, my first round through the 12 steps,
Hmm.
maybe a month ago.
Oh
And
man, congratulations.
eh, thank you, thank you. And now I realize even more so that, one, I'm never done, because I will always be someone in recovery. And two, it is healthy to continue to add. I can't just be happy with what I already have on my regiment. I need to improve. I need to grow. And it's not a stress. It's a blessing that I get to add things. So
Mm.
that's where I'm at.
Man, Aaron, what a beautiful, powerful story. I was captivated by that. The just
Thank you,
going
man.
going from where you're at, from where you were before, with the yo-yoing of sobriety, on
Yeah.
again, off again, up again, down again, and sometimes you had longer highs and longer lows, and it just flowed. And you said 15 years of struggling
Mm.
with a
Yep.
lack of achieving maintenance. You got really good at getting back on the horse, but there was also equally improved your skills of getting off the horse. It sounds like, um, and then this journey of like you said, a spiritual awakening, and it relates to this theme that we're touching on, which is about how, like, the lashes that we receive through life are what can really lead to lasting change if if we choose to take them. Sometimes though, like I'm just aghast at, and I have to not enter this judgmental phase where my pain tolerance is not the same as your pain tolerance or the same as Joe's pain tolerance or Sally's pain tolerance. And I can fall into the trap of being like, why don't you have the same pain tolerance as me? Translation, why is your rock bottom not enough to get you to change when it was more than enough to get me to change? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's a hard one. And I think that this is where I also am thinking back to, like, for me coming from a Christian background, there's a passage when Jesus is talking about like the rich people, and he's like, oh, the rich, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for the rich to enter the gates of heaven. Does that sound familiar to you?
Mm. I like the idea around it. I don't know how familiar it is though.
Okay, well, yeah, it's the side, right? He's pointing this out, and for the longest time, I was thinking, actually, until this conversation, Aaron, I used to think that it was just explicitly there's this like explicit interpretation of like it's harder for rich people to be faithful Christians, and I don't think that in my faith tradition, Jesus often speaks in parables, and it's those who take him literally who are the most misled, and it's the deeper, open, soft, less judgmental, less binary, right wrong thinking that, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that the Christian faith is like. He's like, dude, I
Yeah,
came
man.
in to say enough of this. Are you good or are you bad? And just start living and loving, and everything else will be taken care of if you just believe in me. And so, this idea of it's being difficult for the rich to be righteous, I'm actually realizing from what you said is that no, it's not that the rich means the people who have a lot of money. Rich meaning the people who have never suffered in their life, how difficult it is for them to have a desire to be spiritually fit. For those who have never gone through tragedy, for those who have never experienced loss or pain or regret in life, it's very difficult for them to see a reason to want to have a higher power, a higher sense of meaning, a higher sense of uh, community. That's something I'm thinking about. What do you think
Yeah, man.
about that idea of how suffering
Uh,
can lead to spirituality?
uh, I think it's the clearest path, and I also think the suffering, pain, loss, they're all lessons that you can be told about, but it's hard to appreciate until you experience them yourself. And I think those are the clearest paths to the most genuine spirituality experiences possible. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's not about a judgment thing of, well, I've had a harder life, so I'm more spiritually fit. I don't think it's any of that. It's more like, on my personal journey, I needed those losses. I needed those negative experiences so that I can be more primed to accept how good my spirituality and my spiritual relationship can be. Um, I think it's all a part of the process of life, And
Mm-hmm.
then the thing that I compare it to is like a good having someone who's a good person is cool, but someone who's done bad who chooses to be good is more my kind of person, because they know how bad things can be. They appreciate the fact that they're making a choice to be good, and it's not just all they know. And it's the same thing with spirituality. For me, like, when it was all that was taught to me, I mentioned briefly that I grew up in a religious household on both sides. I was someone who's like, well, if y'all talking about this God person and Jesus, where they at? Can I meet him? Can I touch him? You say they're so good. Well, where? Can I go? Can I go meet them? Can I see them? Are they going to talk to me? And as good as an environment that my family created around me, I needed to go find that relationship on my own through my trials and errors, through my triumphs, um, to make it so that it was my relationship, and my experience and my knowing, and not just something someone told me. So yeah, I think what you're saying is very important. The experience and the suffering definitely builds the opportunity for a more genuine spiritual relationship with your higher power and with yourself.
Mm-hmm. And in this like kind of new set of episodes, as I've been doing this show, I'm learning more about how I understand spiritual fitness, how I talk about it, and it's been a cool experience of learning for myself through these conversations. One of those new ideas that I haven't told you about is framing spiritual fitness as intrinsic resiliency. This idea,
As you would
yeah,
say, tell me more.
tell me more, my man. Say more about that. Thanks, Chaplain. The intrinsic resiliency, like these these internal motivating factors, these internal values, spiritual values that create this incredible defense against the chaotic forces of life. So that in this analogy of being on a boat where the waves and storms of life are completely out of our control, but the boat that we build and the boat that we sail is. And so that's sort of like our intrinsic resiliency to overcome. And it is, I almost feel tears when I say, God Almighty, do I wish that I didn't require the amount of burns in my life in order to get me to see things in a clearer and healthier way. And I do wish and I grieve the lost potential and the lost moments that could have been had I made the change earlier. And I sit with that and I hold that grief in my hands, and my unhealthy mind would say, and that's why you're a bad person and you should be ashamed of yourself and you should feel remorse and go into the moral injury side of things of being unworthy for forgiveness. But my healthy mind, my spiritually fit mind says, well, that's what it was. And I'm so grateful that I came to my understanding when I did. And if it would have been different, it would have been different. But it wasn't different. It is. It was. And so I just accept it. And that level of acceptance of my past has helped me achieve a lot more peace. If that I don't. All right, Coach, my brother, thank you so much for your time, and for all those listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and tune in next week for another great conversation of the Spiritual Fitness Grow Self podcast.